What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the JT Sports Podcast. I'm your host, JT. Draft season has officially kicked off with the start of the NFL Combine, and I love the Combine. As a football nerd, when there's no football on around, you tend to gravitate towards anything that gives you somewhat of some resemblance as to what you will watch on the field on Sundays. And the Combine right now is the closest thing that we have to football, even though it's not really football. The Combine is made out to be the place where teams get their first in-person look at these players. And the problem with that is the Combine has become a glorified beauty pageant, to where these scouts, GMs, and executives, they care more about how guys look more than they care about can these guys actually play. Prime example, Rueben Bain, regarded by most of you guys to be the best pass rusher in this class, is being heavily scrutinized because he has very short arms. And yes, arm length does matter somewhat when you're trying to assess how successful somebody's going to be at the next level. Rueben Bain is an all-time outlier with how short his arms are. There's other ways for Rueben Bain to be effective, for him to overcome the limitations with his short arms. And that's the biggest thing that these evaluators in the NFL seem to forget. You can be a great pass rusher even if you don't have the greatest physical traits. If you have other gifts that can override your limitations, you can still become a very good player. And Rueben Bain has that. And we'll discuss more about Rueben Bain's short arms, how that's going to impact his draft stock, his future in the NFL. Ohio State sent two superheroes to destroy the first day of the Combine. We'll break down where Sonny, Arvell, Reese are going to land in the draft, how they're going to pan out at the next level. I'm going to be giving you guys my 10 best prospects in this upcoming draft, along with hit on some changes that the Chiefs and the Broncos have made. There was a coach at the Combine who was sleeping on the job, and this is a coach of a team with a top 3 pick. And when you have a pick this high, you don't want your head coach to be sleeping on the job. How can you trust them to make the right decision? If you live, eat, breathe, and die football, you have come to the right place. We're talking all things football, NFL draft, college football, 24/7, 365 days throughout the year. If you don't want the starting quarterback for your favorite team next year to be Anthony Richardson because he has recently requested a trade, do yourself, your team, and yours truly a favor. Smash that like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on post notifications so you don't miss when we drop new content. We're not just a YouTube channel, we are a podcast. You can find this episode along with all of our other episodes in audio format wherever you get your podcast from, Apple, Spotify. If you enjoy the podcast, you want to support the grind, give us a 5-star review. The links are down in the pinned comment, in the description down below. Let's dive into it. The NFL Combine is a glorified beauty pageant. They care more about how you look in shorts and tank tops than they care about how well you play on the field. Rueben Bain is a phenomenal football player. May not win the Combine beauty pageant, but if you turn on Rueben Bain's tape, you're going to see a damn good football player in spite of how short his arms may be. I don't care if Rueben Bain had 10-inch arms. I would still draft him in the top 10. He wins in different ways other than relying on the length of his arms. There's been plenty of edge rushers that have been drafted high in the draft with long arms and turned out to be busts. Even though Rueben Bain is an all-time outlier, having 30-inch arms isn't going to limit what his potential is going to be in the NFL. Great players find ways to overcome their limitations. And you can have players that may be a lot smaller than the positional norm, maybe they're a lot slower than the positional average. But if they're very good in a particular area of their game, whether that be bull rushing, athleticism, first step quickness, they can overcome their physical limitations. That's what makes all-time great outliers great players, since they don't have to rely on what most have to need in order to be successful at that position. And let's not forget, Rueben Bain got coached by one of the greatest pass rushers in NFL history, Jason Taylor. Jason Taylor was coaching Rueben Bain up to help overcome his short wingspan that he's going to enter the NFL in. And his short arms didn't stop him from dominating everybody that Miami went up against in the college football playoffs. It's not as if Rueben Bain is coming from the MAC or the Sun Belt Conference and you're questioning, can he overcome his limitations against better competition, better athletes? We saw Rueben Bain dominate against all of the best teams that Miami played last season. Notre Dame, first game in the regular season, he made his presence felt in that one. He got off against Ohio State, Ole Miss, in the national championship against Indiana. Him and Akeem Messidor were raising hell nearly every single time Fernando Mendoza dropped back to play. With the level of competition that we've seen Rueben Bain dominate against in the CFP, why should we be questioning how good he's going to be able to perform in the NFL because he has short arms? Will Campbell plays offensive tackle, not pass rusher. Short arms as an offensive tackle hurts you a lot more than having short arms as an edge rusher, because Rueben Bain can beat you with his first step. As soon as the ball gets snapped, Rueben Bain, with how fast he is reacting to the ball, there's a good amount of offensive guards, offensive tackles that just don't have the kind of freakish athleticism to defend against Rueben Bain's quickness. And even if you are able to get hands on Rueben Bain, that's what development's for, right? Coaches are supposed to help players reach their full potential. And when you have a player with the limitations of Rueben Bain, but with the athleticism, the strength, and the power, you should be able to coach that up and help him find ways to beat guys one-on-one in spite of having 30-inch arms. NFL talent evaluators get it wrong so many times in the draft because they nitpick these prospects so much that they nitpick them to where they're forced to have to not like them because they are underneath the norm for positional standards. If you are a 6'4" receiver with great hands, you run great routes, but you run a 4.7 and a 40, somehow that diminishes your value in the draft process because you're not the great athlete that they want. Every coach, every GM has their vision for what the perfect player looks like for certain positions. There's no such thing as a perfect player. There are no players that enter the draft that have no flaws. There's no such thing as a player that comes out of college that can't miss. None of these guys can't miss. There are guys that we thought were going to be great players that turned out to be huge disasters. And there are a lot of players that we thought would never become anything, hint, hint, Tom Brady, and he ends up becoming the greatest of all time. I'm not saying Rueben Bain is going to be Tom Brady. He's going to be one of the GOATs, but drafting Rueben Bain in the top 10 is one of the safest picks that you can make in this draft. Outside of Rueben Bain having all-time short arms for a potential first-round pass rusher, what are the other knocks against his game that scare you from taking him in the first round, that scare you away from taking him in the top 15 or higher? You turn on the film, yeah, his 30-inch arms may have got him clamped up a few times. There are other edge rushers that get clamped up on certain reps because of other issues not pertaining to the length of their arms. You can have the longest arms in the world and still not be able to get after the quarterback. You can't win every rep. But the way that Rueben Bain wins with good development especially depending on the team that he goes to. Let's say the Jets take him at 2, or he goes to the Tennessee Titans with Robert Saleh. Robert Saleh is one of the best defensive minds in the NFL. He should be able to coach up Rueben Bain and help develop him and help him find other avenues to being great at his position that don't involve or help him overcome having short arms. The NFL is not just all about physical traits. It's also about the intangibles. Rueben Bain has a lot of intangibles. He's a hard worker, has a high motor, never quits, never takes any plays off. There's a bunch of defensive ends in this draft class that I question their effort level. I question, with 5 minutes to go late in the fourth quarter, you need to stop on defense. Are you going to have guys going all out, or are you going to have guys that get winded and they only give you 25% out of 100 effort? I don't have any of those concerns about Rueben Bain. Rueben Bain is one of the best players in this draft. Not just is he one of the best edge rushers in this draft. If we're just talking about overall talent, Rueben Bain is a top 10 prospect this year. He has the athleticism. He has the strength. He just doesn't have the arms. But he has everything else that fits the mold for what a good pass rusher in the league looks like. Very good against the run. If you're a good run defender, how does your arm length not impact your ability to stop the run? But somehow it impacts Rueben Bain's ability to get after the quarterback. He was dominating some of the best offensive lines in college football. Texas A&M's offensive linemen were talking so much smack about Rueben Bain just to get destroyed by him. I care about Rueben Bain's ability to play football. His arms don't have any hindrance on him being able to do that. You care too much about the beauty contest that the combine is. How chiseled do you look? Do you look like Hercules? How fast are you running? And you overlook the film. You overlook the tape. And I didn't see too many reps where I saw Rueben Bain getting absolutely dominated because he has short arms. There's other ways to be successful at your craft than just relying on positional norms. Ohio State sent 2 superheroes to destroy the first day of the NFL Combine. Sonny Styles and Arvell Reese are the peak of the human species. Every year when you watch the NFL Combine, you see guys that move way faster than what anybody should be able to for their size. You see guys that are just the peak of human evolution. And Sonny Styles, Arvell Reese are the prime example of what the phrase guys built in the lab means. Sonny Styles is the most athletic linebacker that the NFL has seen in 2 decades. 6'5", 244 pounds, running 4.46 at linebacker, should not even be allowed to exist. Sonny Styles, by his combine performance alone, solidified himself as a top 5 pick in this year's draft. This is a linebacker that 70% of the NFL needs. This is not your traditional middle linebacker. Sonny Styles is the ultimate human. He not only can he destroy your ability to run the football with how good his instincts is, how he just has a knack for finding the football, but who wants to throw the ball in the middle of the field against this machine? You mean to tell me that you want Zay Flowers, Tank Dell running routes in the middle of the field with Sonny Styles lurking around? That seems like an instant trip to the emergency room if Sonny Styles is able to land one hit on one of those guys. If you are a slot receiver and you know that you have to run a route in the middle of the field with Sonny Styles lurking, that is a psychological disadvantage that makes Sonny Styles worth a top 5 pick, despite of him being a linebacker, and linebackers aren't viewed as commodities in this new age of the NFL. Though Sonny Styles would more so fit the mold of what you're looking for in a linebacker who best fits this new era where it's a quarterback-driven league, it's a pass-happy league. If you're looking to stop the pass, if you're looking to stop these aliens at quarterback like Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen, Sonny Styles is your guy. I call Sonny Styles the Lamar Jackson stopper. He runs 4.46, moving at 6'5", 244 pounds. Lamar Jackson is not running this. Sonny Styles is the only person on this planet that I would bet good money on to whack Derrick Henry one-on-one doing the Oklahoma drill. I don't see Derrick Henry being able to run over Sonny Styles at the one for a game-winning touchdown. This is a freak linebacker. Linebackers like Sonny Styles only come around once in a generation. You know how they're always quick to say a quarterback is generational? We don't seem to use this generational tab for any other position but quarterback. Sonny Styles fits the mold as a generational middle linebacker. He's great against the run, and you don't want to try to test him throwing the football because you're liable to get one of your players, one of your receivers sent to the emergency room. Arvell Reese has a superhero build, very violent, super explosive. He's only 20 right now. He turns 21 in a few months in August. Has a lot of similarities to Michael Parsons. Like Michael Parsons, when he was coming out of Penn State a few years ago, he had a lot of versatility. You were trying to figure out how were you going to deploy Michael Parsons in the NFL since he can play off-ball linebacker. You can also line him up as a stand-up edge anywhere on the defensive line. Arvell Reese has that same versatility. The problem with Arvell Reese and drafting him in the top 5 is that you're drafting him solely based off athleticism and potential. And that's dangerous when you're selecting high in the draft, since you have a better shot drafting somebody who may not have the upside, but already has the technique, already has a good foundation that he should be set up for instant success to where he can become an impact contributor for you as a rookie. That's what I'm looking for if I'm a GM and I'm picking in the top 5 or the top 10 of the draft. Can I draft you and you make an instant impact for me in your first year? A guy like Arvell Reese doesn't fit that mold. He's more so of a guy that you got to wait 2-3 years to figure it out. You got to wait a little bit of time for him to develop. And if this was a quarterback, I would be all for drafting Arvell Reese. But we see way too often so many guys like Arvell Reese that dominate the combine, don't have a lot of production as a starter, as an edge rusher. They get drafted off physical traits and upside, and they end up becoming busts. Prime example, Tyree Wilson. The Raiders drafted him in the top 10 of the draft a few years ago, and you barely hear this guy's name called during the games on Sundays. And he had all the tools, the size, the athleticism that you look for in the top tier edge rusher. Arvell Reese, in spite of these unique genetic gifts that he has, there's no guarantee he'll be able to put this all together. He doesn't have a lot of pass rush moves. He's more so reliant on beating you off, his strength, just the overwhelming amount of power that he hits you with as soon as the ball is snapped. In the NFL, against more experienced offensive tackles, guys that are a lot bigger, a lot stronger, that's not going to work. You can't win solely based off athleticism in the NFL. The NFL is also just as much as a mind game as it is a gladiator game. You have to be able to come up with different pass rush moves to throw offensive tackles off balance so they don't really know how to defend against you. Arvell Reese, is he ever going to be able to develop the pass rushing repertoire or the skill set to throw a lot of different pass rush moves at offensive tackles to where he can truly maximize all of his physical gifts? He could be a Jadeveon Clowney, give you 8.5, 9.5 sacks, and that's a solid player. But for where Arvell Reese is slated to get drafted, you need a lot more than Jadeveon Clowney. You're looking for Max Crosby, Michael Parsons, Myles Garrett. I'm not confident that you're going to get that out of Arvell Reese. I don't see Arvell Reese as a top 10 player in this draft solely because he's more so of a projection than he is a proven commodity. Rueben Bain, David Bailey are proven commodities. They have pass rushing moves. They're not solely relying on speed and athleticism to beat you. I have more faith that Rueben Bain and David Bailey are going to be successful at the next level than I do Arvell Reese because they're more polished. They're less raw. And you know they can win with just more than sheer athleticism. I don't have that same amount of confidence in Arvell Reese, especially if he's going to a place like the New York Jets. When have the Jets been good at developing anybody? Are you trusting the New York Jets to develop a 20-year-old edge rusher? Yeah, the traits are there, but you can sell me on the idea of Arvell Reese going to the Kansas City Chiefs and getting developed by Steve Spagnuolo. I can get behind that. I can't get behind him going to a place like the Cincinnati Bengals. The draft is so difficult to judge because some of these players, how good they're going to be is circumstantial. It's all dependent upon the situation they go to, the scheme that they're inserted into, and if the defensive coordinator that's coaching them can really properly maximize their physical traits. Arvell Reese is one of those tweeners where you don't really know where he is his best at. His physical tools show you that he could be one of the best pass rushers in the NFL, but the film shows that he's better as an inside linebacker than he is as a pass rusher. Great closing speed, phenomenal pursuit. I would love to start Arvell Reese as a linebacker. Then if he doesn't work out there, try to see if I can get more out of him as a pass rusher. I just feel right now, Arvell Reese, with how raw he is as a pass rusher, you're better off just drafting Rueben Bain or David Bailey. And if you need an off-ball linebacker, why draft Arvell Reese when you can just get you Sonny Styles or Jacob Rodriguez out of Texas Tech? It's just Arvell Reese getting drafted possibly over David Bailey or Rueben Bain reminds me when the Jaguars passed on Aiden Hutchinson for Trayvon Walker, since Trayvon Walker was the better athlete, so it was presumed that he had a higher ceiling than Aiden Hutchinson, even though Aiden Hutchinson, though he didn't have the athleticism that Trayvon Walker had, he was more fundamentally and technically sound than what Trayvon Walker is. And it's no surprise that Aiden Hutchinson has been the better of the two players so far in the pros. Scouts get too intrigued with measurables and athleticism that they use it too much in their evaluation, and it blinds them to the raw skill set that these players have. Can you do the fundamentals right? Do you understand how to play the game for your position? And that's what the Jaguars got wrong when it came to the decision to draft Trayvon Walker over Aiden Hutchinson. If they could redo that draft pick again, I guarantee you they would have went with Aiden Hutchinson. Aiden Hutchinson has been the more impactful of the two, and he is the tall tale sign that you don't need to be this outstanding athlete as long as you're just a fundamentally and technically sound football player. Right now, Arvell Reese is just more projection than he is proven production. You only have 1 year of film on this guy. With Michael Parsons, who he's being compared to, he was starting for Penn State for 2 seasons. So we had 2 years of game film to go off when Michael Parsons was coming out of the draft. We don't have that with Arvell Reese. You're drafting somebody that has only 1 year as a starter and also disappeared during the second half of the season. Go back and watch Ohio State's playoff game against Miami. I didn't see Arvell Reese anywhere. I didn't hear his name called at all. Same thing in the Big Ten championship. He was a no-show. You're taking a very big risk drafting Arvell Reese in the top 10 because he's solely being slated to go that high because of the potential and athleticism. And we've seen so many of these Arvell Reese come through the draft so many years and not pan out. And I don't know if Arvell Reese is going to be as good as what his athleticism and his combine performance may suggest. I like Arvell Reese as a top 20 pick, but in the top 5, top 10, I just need a lot more juice from day one than what you could get out of Arvell Reese. If I'm Aaron Glenn and I know that I possibly could be coaching for my job this year, I don't want to draft somebody that I have to wait 3 years for them to possibly reach their full potential. Can I draft you and you immediately pop for me? Like Myles Garrett, like Khalil Mack in his rookie season. Chase Young popped in his rookie season. I don't know if Arvell Reese is going to pop like that, which is why I wouldn't take you top 5, top 10 to draft. If you're going top 10 or higher in the draft, you should be an instant impact player unless you're a quarterback. Quarterback is the only position that you can draft high where you don't need instant gratification, since there's a science that goes into developing quarterbacks that the league hasn't properly figured out yet. Edge rusher, receiver, corner are instant impact positions. You don't need 4 to 5 years to figure out if a guy can play or not at these positions. If a guy doesn't have it around his second season, he's not giving you serviceable production, he just isn't it. And Arvell Reese, I love the potential. I love the upside. If we're ranking players based off potential, Arvell Reese is far by number one compared to everybody else. His ceiling is so high with his youth and his power and athleticism. But if we're just going off the other things like the proven production, how much film and experience he has, those are huge red flags. He's still learning the position. He's still somewhat learning the game to a certain extent. So I love Sonny Styles as a top 5 pick. I wouldn't be mad if Sonny Styles went second overall, drafted by the New York Jets. Sonny Styles is the kind of linebacker that a third of the NFL needs. You're going to have a hard time being able to run with a guy like Lamar Jackson or Josh Allen when you got Sonny Styles as a spy, or being able to run just in the middle of a defense in general with him being the captain of it. I love Sonny Styles. I'm not really that big of a fan when it comes to Arvell Reese being the top 5 or higher draft pick. I want to drop my top 10 prospects in the 2026 NFL draft. These are the 10 players that I'm the most confident are going to not just succeed in the NFL, but they're going to be all-pro level or better players at the next level. Starting off at number 10, I have defensive tackle Caleb Banks out of Florida. Yeah, he doesn't have a lot of production. He missed majority of last season with a foot injury. But when he was on the field and he was healthy, you could understand why he was viewed in the first round conversation in the preseason. I see a lot of Jalen Carter and Caleb Banks' game. Now, he's not as disruptive against the run as what he is against the pass, but when you have a defensive tackle that has the pass rushing upside that Caleb Banks has, he deserves top 10 consideration, since when you got a defensive tackle that's very good at rushing the quarterback, not only does it elevate that defense, but it makes it extremely hard to game plan for as an offensive coordinator when you have such a disruptor in the middle of a defensive line. You saw how dominant Aaron Donald was at the peak of his career. Jalen Carter has been one of the best defensive tackles in the league. Some of the best defensive tackles in the league all have the ability to get after the quarterback. Yeah, you will love a very good run stopper, a good gap clogger, but rushing the quarterback matters more in deciding the outcome of games than stopping the run, since it's a quarterback-driven league, it's a pass-happy league, and you need pass rushers who can get guys like Josh Allen, Lamar, Joe Burrow, Patrick Mahomes off the field in crucial situations. Based off positional impact or positional value, alongside with the upside, the potential that he's already flashed his last few seasons at Florida, Caleb Banks to me is the 10th best player in this draft class. If he reaches full potential, I could see like a DeForest Buckner, Jalen Carter type-esque player. He has a very good first step, knows how to just create havoc. Even if you try to double team Caleb Banks, it's not going to work. And he's insanely athletic for a guy his size. Francis Mauigoa, offensive tackle out of Miami, is the 9th best player in this draft class, in my opinion. You can never go wrong drafting a Samoan offensive tackle in the top 10. You see how well Penei Sewell has been playing. I haven't seen a bad Samoan offensive tackle into the NFL yet. Francis Mauigoa was coached by one of the best, if not the best, offensive line coach in college football. Mario Cristobal specializes in the offensive line. So there's not a better offensive tackle prospect in this draft that you're going to find than Francis Mauigoa that can come in and be a solid right tackle for you his first weeks as a starter. Now, if you want to move him to left tackle, there could be some growing pains there, since playing right tackle is not the same as playing left tackle, vice versa. When you play a different tackle position, it's kind of made out to be as if you're trying to write with your non-dominant hand. It's like trying to learn how to write all over again. And with what we've already seen with Francis Mauigoa at right tackle, you can just plug and play him and he should immediately be an upgrade over anybody else that you're going to get out of free agency at that position if you can't overspend for some of the top tier guys. If you're looking for a franchise right tackle that you can get on a very cheap deal, since we know how much these tackles are getting paid, Francis Mauigoa is the way to go. If you're the Cincinnati Bengals, I think you could draft them. The Kansas City Chiefs definitely should be on the lookout for Francis Mauigoa if he comes available at 9th overall. I could see him going anywhere from 5 to 10th in the draft. Rueben Bain, I have as the 8th best player in this draft class. Talent evaluators are overthinking it with the arm length. Yes, there haven't been players that have had as short as an arm length as what Rueben Bain has, but there's been players that have had long arms, long wingspans, and haven't been good. The NFL draft isn't necessarily a science to where you can tell if a guy's going to be good or not based off his wingspan, based off his arm length. Rueben Bain was the most disruptive pass rusher in college football last year. There wasn't any other pass rusher in America that was giving quarterbacks more nightmares than where Rueben Bain was. Any of the big games that Miami played in, Rueben Bain was always dominating in them. Throughout Miami's playoff run a few months ago, you saw Rueben Bain destroy Texas A&M, Ohio State, Ole Miss, Indiana. All of those teams have very good offensive lines, and Rueben Bain completely destroyed them alongside of his tag team partner, Akeem Mesidor. Rueben Bain, I don't care if he had 15-inch arms. I would still draft him in the top 10. Very good first step. He moves very fast for an edge rusher. He has very rare twitch and athleticism that you don't see from this position. There's other ways to get after the quarterback that doesn't involve you needing to have extremely giraffe-like arms to be able to dominate. Mansour Delane, I have as my 7th best player in this year's draft. Cornerback out of LSU. He's your prototypical elite man-to-man press corner. You can put him in any scheme. I think he'll excel. I expect Mansour Delane to be a top 10 pick, since corners that have the kind of instant impact skill set that he has are in such high demand. And with corners, they're one of the easiest positions to tell if guys are going to work out or not, because it's an instant impact position. Think about all of the best corners in the game right now. Sauce Gardner, Derek Stingley, Trent McDuffie. You didn't wait 2 to 3 years to figure out if those guys had or not. They showed you as soon as they first stepped on the field in week 1 that they were one of the best in the game. Mansour Delane, I think he's that kind of corner. And any corner that comes out of LSU normally tends to be really good. Patrick Peterson, we already see what Derek Stingley's doing. If you're looking for DBs, especially corners, you got to go to LSU. They never seem to miss that corner. Monsieur Delane is going to be the next in line to continue the LSU CBU tradition. Mekhi Lemon, I believe, is the sixth best player in this draft this year. He has a lot of similarities to JSN in his game. He is a smooth route runner, just a smooth technician at the position. He's not a burner after the catch, nor is he going to do a lot after the catch, but he can do enough to where Mekhi Lemon, I expect him to be a 1,200, 1,300-yard guy for the majority of his career. At USC, it was hard not to pay attention to how good Mekhi Lemon was. You normally don't associate receivers for being the catalyst for how successful a team season was. But if you take Mekhi Lemon off of this past year's USC team, I don't believe they would have been as good as what they were. Mekhi Lemon can do anything. Not just can he win one-on-one and press coverage, but he can also win those one-on-one 50-50 ball matchups. There's not a single flaw in Mekhi Lemon's game outside of he just doesn't run 4.2, 4.3. But if you're looking for a receiver to draft in the top 10, to be that number one guy, to give you 1,100, 1,200 yards right away in year one, Mekhi Lemon is that guy. You don't have any durability concerns, no character red flags. I don't see how Mekhi Lemon isn't the first receiver taken off the board this year. Starting off my top five, David Bailey is the best pass rusher in this class, and some can argue he may be the best player overall in this draft this year. This dude is a freak, not just with how he plays on the field, with the multitude of different ways he can get after the quarterback. Not just can he knock guys into the QB, but he can put a spin move on the guy. He kind of reminds me of Dwight Freeney. Dwight Freeney is a throwback player. If you're as old as me, you're 22, 23, you may not know that much about Dwight Freeney, but Dwight Freeney was a lot similar to David Bailey with just the amount of pass rush moves he had, with his agility, his quickness, how fast he was able to move at that size. I see a lot of that in David Bailey. The best game that I saw David Bailey play was in Texas Tech's second round playoff game against Oregon. David Bailey was a man amongst boys, and Oregon has a bunch of players in the draft that started on that offensive line that David Bailey was destroying, from spin moves, the all kinds of crazy moves. David Bailey just has such a deep bag of pass rush moves. It's hard to have any other pass rusher over him. The athleticism, just the already proven polish that he has in his game. I think he's the safest pass rusher in this draft class. If you're looking for somebody that has a high floor, high ceiling, David Bailey is that guy. He's already come into the league somewhat nearly finished. So now if you're a defensive coordinator or a defensive-minded head coach, you're just looking to put the finishing touches on the paint job. At number 4, I have Fernando Mendoza, clearly the best quarterback in this class, and there's nobody else that even comes close to him. He isn't the most physically wowing quarterback that you're going to see. He doesn't have an arm that's going to wow you like a Joe Milton or Josh Allen. He's not a freak athlete. He's just very good at everything. He's a very well-rounded quarterback. There's not really a lot of big glaring weaknesses in his game. He's athletic enough that you can use him on design quarterback runs. He can pick up yardage if it's there to be had. He's a very accurate thrower of the football, has a very good arm. Fernando Mendoza is Matt Ryan / Kirk Cousins with more mobility. He's not a statue in the pocket. He goes through his progressions. He takes great care of the football. Fernando Mendoza, you can start him day one. And as long as you have a solid team around him, a decent offensive line, some receivers, a strong ground game, depending on your situation, if you're the Raiders, you're probably not going to be a playoff team in Fernando Mendoza's rookie season, but you definitely can be a lot better this year than what you were last year, since Geno Smith was just so reckless with the ball. Fernando Mendoza, I would already argue and say he's better than Geno Smith. Now, I don't think that the Raiders are going to force Fernando Mendoza to start day one. Tom Brady is running the show there as a minority owner. He's not going to make Fernando Mendoza jump into the water a lot earlier than what he needs to, since Tom Brady believes in quarterback sitting, learning from a vet, getting a better understanding of the game before he gets thrown to the wolves. So I like Fernando Mendoza a lot. I think that he's kind of being over nitpicked due to prospect fatigue. There's not really anything to be extremely negative about after watching Fernando Mendoza play. He won at Indiana. It's not as if he was playing at Alabama or Georgia. He had the best offensive line, the best receivers. He did something that Indiana has never been able to do in all the years they've been around as a football program, and that's actually be able to be relevant and compete for a national championship. In his first season at Indiana, he took them to a height that they never were able to reach before. They were the losingest program in college football history until over these last 2 years. And the quarterback they had last year was good. Fernando Mendoza, with how well he played, with the impact that he had on that program, he is a large reason why Indiana had one of the greatest seasons ever. When you have a quarterback that's just this efficient with the football, this good taking care of the ball, and also has decent enough aggressiveness to where he's not going to be scared to take shots if they're there, I don't see how you can go wrong taking Fernando Mendoza in any draft. Yeah, there are quarterbacks in other draft classes in the past, Caleb Williams, Jaden Daniels, that are better prospects than Fernando Mendoza with what they do physically. But Fernando Mendoza, his floor is pretty high for the amount of bust that you see enter the league. At his worst, he gives you top 20 quarterback play, not good enough to be a franchise quarterback, but not bad enough to where you can find a decent replacement for him come available every offseason. Starting off my top three, Jeremiah Love is the third best player in this draft class, in my opinion. This is Saquon Barkley reincarnated. The vision, the burst, the power, the instant acceleration, the top speed. Any team that needs not just a running back, but a impact weapon on offense, Jeremiah Love is a must-have. Best landing spot would be the Kansas City Chiefs. The Kansas City Chiefs right now, they're just devoid of instant offense kind of guys. They need guys that you put the ball in their hands and they're a threat to take it to the house anytime they have their hands on the football. Jeremiah Love is that guy. If the Chiefs draft Jeremiah Love, you take a lot of the pressure that's been on Mahomes over these last couple of years away, since now you have somebody that can actually close the game other than Mahomes. You have a guy that can break a game other than Mahomes. You have a guy that you can find easier ways to get the ball in his hands and find ways to produce some offense when you get into a bind, when you're struggling to get your receivers open. Jeremiah Love, it's just a guy that you can build an offense around. You can make him the focal point of an offense. And running backs aren't valued as high as what they used to be in the early 2000s, the late 90s, since they have such a short career span. Jeremiah Love is a 10-year player that you can expect to be a multiple first-team All-Pro selection, be a leading rushing candidate on several occasions. I see Jeremiah Love as one of the closest things that is a guarantee to being an all-pro player as a prospect. There's just so much to like about his game, and he's just a good fit for any team that's just in need of a weapon. He's not a running back. He's a weapon because he's pretty good catching the football out of the backfield. Now, he's not Bijan Robinson, Jahmyr Gibbs when it comes to running routes. You can't line him up at receiver. He's not that good as a pass catcher, but if you're just throwing him swing routes, screens, Texas routes coming out of the backfield, He's very good running those kinds of concepts, but he's not CMC. If you're just looking for a home run kind of player at the running back position, Jeremiah Love is your guy. At number 2, Caleb Downs is Derwin James reincarnated. He can play in the box. He can play single high. He can play two high. You can put him in the slot. He's good against the run. He's great in man-to-man coverage against running backs and tight ends. Caleb Downs is your modern safety. You're the Von Witherspoon. You're Jalen Petries. This is a versatile chess piece that you can just move all around your defense, and he can transform that unit. He's the kind of player that you build a defense around with the versatility. How many variations of different schemes you can throw at guys, or different formations with him maybe playing linebacker and nickel or dime packages, or if you need somebody to defend against, those big plays, he can play two high, he can play single high and just be that one soul eraser in the middle of the field. Caleb Downs, I'm a little bit shocked that he's not viewed a lot higher than what he currently is right now, because not too often have guys been able to start and have an instant impact as 18-year-old freshmen coming straight out of high school for Nick Saban. The only few guys that you can recall that started for Nick Saban as true freshmen were Julio Jones and maybe a handful of other players. So for Caleb Downs, in the 3 years that he has been in college football, to be an All-American every single year, arguably the best player in the sport, I don't think it's anything but a guarantee that Caleb Downs is going to be a future All-Pro. He comes from football royalty. His uncles played. His brother, Josh Downs, currently is a very solid receiver for the Colts. It's just the bloodline runs so strong. I'm not willing to bet against Caleb Downs not being a future All-Pro kind of player. And just with what he brings to a defense, I think he's the second best player in this draft. And at number 1, Sonny Styles, to me, is the best player in this year's draft class. This is not a linebacker. This is Captain America playing linebacker in the NFL. If you were creating a dream linebacker on Madden, Sonny Styles would be what you would create. He is the prime example of somebody that's built out of a lab, 6'5", 244 pounds, runs 4.46. This is a monster. I don't know any receivers that would want to run routes in the middle of the field with Sonny Styles lurking. I don't know anybody that would even want to run Sonny Styles' direction. This is a human reincarnation of a nightmare to me. Watching Sonny Styles dominate the combine and watching his film, which reflects what we saw at the combine, makes me glad I'm not playing in the NFL, because Sonny Styles is the peak of human evolution. You know how they always say that every year guys are getting faster, guys are getting stronger. Sonny Styles is the prime example of that. These are my top 10 prospects in the upcoming 2026 NFL draft. Let me know your thoughts on these rankings. Let me know what your top 10 rankings look like as far as who the best prospects in this draft class go down in the comment section down below. So imagine you're a team going 15 consecutive seasons without a playoff appearance, consistently picking top 10 in the draft or higher. You have the second overall pick in this year's draft, and your head coach is caught lacking, slumped on the job, guys running 40s. Aaron Glenn is catching some Z's. Aaron Glenn falling asleep at the combine is why the Jets made the wrong decision keeping him for a second season. I get it that he's viewed as a culture builder, and for culture builder archetype coaches, it takes a few years for them to turn around the franchise. But from what we've seen out of Aaron Glenn so early into his head coaching career with the Jets, there's too many red flags to ignore at this point. Aaron Glenn has too many red flags to be confident that he's going to be successful with the Jets, from the awful clock management that he had in the first half against the Broncos in London, to how he mismanaged the quarterback position, to how he cleaned house with nearly his entire offensive staff and struggled to find serviceable replacements for the guys he got rid of. Nobody wanted to coach on his staff due to just how bad the Jets looked last year. Sure, the players like him, but when you're falling asleep at the NFL Combine, having a pick as important, as high as what you do, it's just a non-excusable for me. And it's a bad look. And it further shows how unserious the New York Jets are and have been as a franchise. If you want to know why the New York Jets have been one of the worst ran organizations in all of sports for 15 years and counting, look no further than Aaron Glenn falling asleep at the NFL Combine. No, you can't catch a nap at the Combine. You can't get no Z's. You have the second overall pick. You need to have your eyes wide as hell, making sure that you knock this pick out of the park, because you've sucked for so long that eventually these fans are going to start protesting. They're not even going to even watch the games anymore, let alone attend them, because why would you want to watch 3 hours of New York Jets football on Sundays? Sundays are the Lord's Day. You really want to mess that up watching bad football? And we've been watching bad football of the Jets for years. Aaron Glenn shouldn't be sleeping at the NFL Combine. This isn't one of those, oh, he's tired, he's been working long hours. You have the second pick of the draft. Your team has been garbage for 15 years. This pick is important. Unless you plan on trading the pick, that's the only way you can justify Aaron Glenn snoozing. Sure, watching guys run in shorts and tank tops isn't what I would call a high-level entertainment, but this is your job. The Combine is important. Player evaluation. You need to be, we're nitpicking these guys to their arm length. So the least you can do is watch a guy run the 40. That's pretty simple. There is no, a guy can't be tired, a guy can't get no Z's. No. If your team has the second pick of the draft and you were the second worst team in the NFL last year, the New York Jets are not going anywhere but further down than what they already have been over these last few years. If you thought last season couldn't get any worse for the Jets, this season could be even worse. You don't know if you got a solid offensive coordinator. You don't know if you're going to be able to field a halfway serviceable defense, because despite Aaron Glenn being a former defensive coordinator, a defensive-minded coach, the defense was just as bad as what the Jets offense was last year. It's just, the Jets are one of those organizations that you can always bet on are going to be garbage, no matter how good their roster may look on paper, no matter how good their draft class may be, no matter how good their free agency moves are. You can just always fade the Jets, because the Jets are the Jets. And they just are a franchise that just never has good leadership. And it always starts from the top up. When you have a Looney Tunes owner running the show, of course, he's going to have a head coach that probably isn't going to be that good, because Looney Tune owners don't make good decisions. And keeping Aaron Glenn longer than for last season, it further shows me that the Jets are just a clown show. And I know everybody calls the Jets a clown show, but I don't even call the New York Jets anymore. I call them the New York Jet or the New York Circus, because that's all the Jets are. Your head coach and the vision that has a team that just lost in the Super Bowl and also has one of the best quarterbacks, arguably the best quarterback in the league, you shouldn't be sleep on the job, man. There's no excuses for this. You can't sleep at work. If your boss sees you napping on the job, whether it be he walks up on you sleeping or he's watching the cameras and catches you sleeping, 9 times out of 10, if we're doing what Aaron Glenn was doing at the NFL Combine, we lose our jobs. So Aaron Glenn shouldn't be given no grace for catching Z's at the Combine. This is an embarrassment for the New York Jets that you're having your head coach who hosts the second pick of the draft snoozing at an event that's all about evaluating these players' athleticism, being able to see these players in person. You only get to see these players up front and close like you do at the Combine for so many times that you can't truly be able to assess everybody because you only get a certain amount of visits. You only have a certain amount of time to truly meet and see these prospects up close, probably like 3-4 times. That's it. And Aaron Glenn just wasted one of the first few appearances that the Jets are going to have in front of these players by sleeping on the job. How can you truly believe that the Jets are going to be taking a step in the right direction this year when their head coach, he's dancing on the sidelines, he's snoozing at the NFL Combine, he's calling a fake punt just to not do anything with it before halftime because he's scared to turn the football over? Aaron Glenn is not a good head coach. And there are a lot of red flags that are glaringly obvious to say that Aaron Glenn is going to be a huge disaster with the Jets, and they're going to be right back picking in the top 3, maybe number 1 overall next season. The Chiefs are rebuilding without calling it a rebuild. The Chiefs are changing their draft philosophy. They're changing their philosophy with how they go about player acquisition. Why are the Chiefs changing this? Because they feel the pressure from the Chargers and the Broncos. The Chiefs are behind the 8 ball. If you ever play high school football, at the start of every summer camp, the coach always loves to say, oh, we're already behind the 8 ball. We're already behind everybody else in the city. Everybody else is already ahead of us. We're a week and a half late. That's the Kansas City Chiefs. The Chargers and the Broncos are more closer to winning a Super Bowl than what the Kansas City Chiefs currently are right now with the state of their roster at the moment. The Chiefs, even if they are able to free up more cap space, have a decent free agency, make a few good draft picks, they're still going to be behind the Broncos and the Chargers. The Chiefs are trying to rebuild and rebrand and overhaul a bunch of different positions that there's no guarantee they're going to be able to improve. Brett Veach is an average general manager. He's been the beneficiary of drafting Patrick Mahomes, hiring Andy Reid, and hitting on a few other key players. But the biggest issue with Brett Veach and why the Kansas City Chiefs find themselves trailing behind the Broncos and the Chargers for the division is due to the lack of aggressiveness that Brett Veach has had. He's not willing to roll the dice and take the desperate swings that you see desperate teams make that are desperately trying to remain Super Bowl contenders. Why aren't the Chiefs in conversations for trading for A.J. Brown or Brian Thomas Jr.? Why are they not in the conversation for possibly getting Trent Williams or trading for Trent Williams if the 49ers aren't able to come to a restructured deal with him? There are so many top players that have been available for trade that the Chiefs have had no interest in trading for. The Chiefs should have been trying to get Michael Parsons or Quinnen Williams. Brett Veach doesn't have the desperation that the Chiefs need him to have, considering that right now they're currently 9th in Super Bowl odds, and they could be a lot lower than that since the Chiefs can no longer rely on Patrick Mahomes' magic to overcompensate for having an average roster with how strong their division is right now. The Chargers have the most cap space to spend out of every team in the AFC West. The Broncos aren't too far behind them. So while the Chiefs are spending money and draft picks on trying to rebuild, the Chargers and Broncos are spending money and draft picks to further improve already good teams, add more depth. So the Chargers are going to be even better this season than what they were last year, where the Chiefs could only be slightly more improved. And the Chiefs no longer have that fear factor that you once used to have when you knew Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs were coming into town, come to the divisional round of the playoffs or the AFC Championship. This season, I think the Chargers win the AFC West and they win the AFC. The Chargers have a better shot at making it to the Super Bowl this year than what the Chiefs have, since their roster is a lot better. They're only a few pieces away from being the best team in the AFC than what the Chiefs are from being back in the Super Bowl. The Chiefs rebuild is going to take more than just this offseason to finish. It's going to take 2-3 more years for the Chiefs to get back to the level that they were a few years ago, just like it did for the New England Patriots. The New England Patriots, very early on with Brady and Belichick, they three-peated, they were dominating the league, and then they had a period where they went a decade and they weren't in the Super Bowl at all, or when they went to the Super Bowl, they lost because the rest of the league started to catch up to them. And the AFC West caught up to the Chiefs last year. And now the Chiefs are behind in the race. And they're trying to catch up from behind. But they're already so many laps back. No matter what the Chiefs do this offseason, they would not be a threat for the AFC title this year. They would not be in the Super Bowl conversation since they just have too many holes that they're going to have that aren't going to be able to be filled with just simple one-off season. It's not going to be enough. You can't catch up to the Broncos thinking that you're going to be able to outspend them when you have to re-sign guys like Trent McDuffie, or you got to part ways with guys like Travis Kelce or Chris Jones. You have a very bad receiving core. You have a huge cancer at receiver in Rashee Rice. You got Xavier Worthy, who's more of a low-end wide receiver 3, gadget slot guy than he is of a high-end wide receiver 1, wide receiver 2. You don't really have a good, consistent pass rush at all. Your offensive line needs some help at right tackle. There's a lot of holes that the Chiefs have that one offseason isn't going to patch them all. The Broncos and Chargers don't really have too many significant holes. And if any, they can address them with this offseason, with what they have to spend in free agency, what they have in the draft. The Chiefs, they don't have the same amount of cap space, nor the same amount of margin for error to miss on draft picks or whiff on guys that they sign in free agency as what the Chargers or the Broncos do, since their teams are already built to compete for the Super Bowl. The Chiefs roster right now isn't. You see, years ago, the Chiefs could win even with the average team because Mahomes and Andy Reid could make up the difference. Now everybody has a great quarterback. Everybody has good coaches. Everybody has good teams now. So the Chiefs can no longer win with simply just relying on Patrick Mahomes' magic. They have to be more than just Mahomes and able to win. And it's going to take several off seasons for the Chiefs to be able to reload. The Chiefs are not going to have an overnight rebuild. Last season is not going to be a one-off occurrence where we don't see the Chiefs in the AFC Championship. They won't make it to the AFC Championship this year. The Chiefs, they'll make it to the playoffs this year, but they won't go no further than probably the divisional round, since there's so many stronger teams where the coaching is just as respectable, where the quarterback play is just as good. Patrick Mahomes hasn't even been the best quarterback in the NFL for going on 2 years now. I would take Josh Allen, Drake May, Lamar, Joe Burrow over Patrick Mahomes. They've played better than him. They've been a lot more efficient. They've been a lot more consistent than Patrick Mahomes. So even Patrick Mahomes has to come back from his injury and rebuild his game to a certain extent. The Chiefs don't act like a desperate team, but they should. They should be willing to get into bidding wars for top guys in free agency. They should be in more trade talks for some of the best guys available on the trade market, like A.J. Brown. I don't see the Chiefs catching up to the Denver Broncos or the Chargers rosters anytime soon. They got to overhaul so many different positions where they need all hits, no misses, and I just can't see that happening this year. Sean Payton made the smartest move of his career. For over 20 years as a head coach in the NFL, Sean Payton has called plays on offense. For the first time ever, though, this year, he will be relinquishing play calling duties to 31-year-old OC Davis Webb. Davis Webb was a very hot name on the coaching carousel. He got a lot of interviews for head coaching jobs. There were also a lot of teams that were interested in hiring him as their offensive coordinator. And for Sean Payton to keep Davis Webb around, he had to fire his left-hand man, Joe Lombardi, who's been with him since his first year in New Orleans as a head coach back in 2006. And he had to promote Davis Webb to OC and play caller just so he can keep this guy around. Now, we all know that Sean Payton has one of the biggest egos in the NFL. He's very prideful about his offense, his scheme, his play calling. So for Sean Payton to be giving it all up after 20 years doing this to a young, up-and-coming upstart like Davis Webb at 31 years old shows you how good Davis Webb is as an offensive mind and how much Sean Payton truly wants to win. Sean Payton, I commend him for the decision to give up play calling to Davis Webb. He recognized last season his offense wasn't good enough for the Broncos to win it all. It was stagnant. It was too predictable with the amount of screens that they were running. With Davis Webb, you should see a more modernized offense that's going to not just raise the Broncos' ceiling, but also increase their chances of not just getting back to the AFC Championship, but next go around, hopefully being able to win it and possibly go on to win the Super Bowl, since we know that the defense is still going to be good, since Vance Joseph isn't going anywhere anytime soon. You still have a bunch of great players on that side of the football that you're going to bring back next year. Your offense already has a lot of good players on the offensive line. You just need to figure out running back, add 2 more good receivers, get Bo Nix healthy, and you're cooking. With Davis Webb being promoted to the offensive play caller for the Broncos, the offense should be more explosive and generating big plays downfield. They should be a lot better stretching the field, since we know Sean Payton more so took a conservative approach. He more so likes to dink and dunk his way, more so than just being balls to the wall. We're just going to push the football downfield. You should see less volatility, more consistency out of this unit. And early during this upcoming season, with Davis Webb being a first-time play caller for the Broncos, there's going to be a level of unpredictability that the Broncos are going to have on offense that's going to be hard for defensive coordinators to kind of figure out, because you don't know what you're going to get from Davis Webb's offense. You know he's going to be running the scheme that Sean Payton has been running for years, but you're not going to know the changes that Davis Webb is going to make. What are going to be the small tweaks that we won't notice right out the gate? How differently is he going to utilize Bo Nix? I always felt like Sean Payton wasn't calling plays to benefit the most that Bo Nix had to offer as far as the skill set standpoint goes. Bo Nix is a very good athlete, yet you didn't really see a lot of creativity with the design quarterback runs that Bo Nix was used on. You didn't see a lot of read options, zone reads as frequently as what you would think you would see with the guy that has the skill set that Bo Nix has. With Sean Payton relinquishing these play calling duties to Davis Webb, you have 2 young guys in Webb and Bo Nix that should lead to more collaboration between the two. You should see Bo Nix having the offense tailored more around his mobility, with Davis Webb calling the plays, than what you did compared to Sean Payton's play calling. And with better utilization of Bo Nix' skill set from Davis Webb, Bo Nix, he elevates his level of play from being a solid middle-of-the-road quarterback to being a top 10 or better quarterback this season possibly. And with the Super Bowl level defense that the Broncos already have, you give them top 10 or better quarterback play out of Bo Nix, there's no way you can't see them back in the AFC Championship next year or possibly hoisting the Lombardi Trophy. Sean Payton has won a Super Bowl before. He knows what a Super Bowl team looks like, and he could have easily kept calling plays, could have used the excuse that if we had Bo Nix healthy, we didn't have to start Jarrett Stidham against the Patriots, we would have been in the Super Bowl. Instead, he looked at himself in the mirror, he put his ego and pride to the side, and he said, you know what? I'm holding this team back. I need to allow somebody that's a lot younger to do the job that I've been doing for 20 years, and he can possibly do it a lot better than me. That's a humbling thing to have to admit to yourself. And it's very shocking that Sean Payton made this decision. And it's a decision that I believe is going to elevate the Broncos' ceiling even higher than what it was last season. And you were one game away from playing in the Super Bowl. I can definitely see the Broncos being right back in the AFC Championship with the move of promoting Davis Webb to the full-time play caller on offense.